It is live. I forgot before I hit that I was getting up my phone, but I'll do it now. What's up, everybody? Dan Plata here with Blue Sky Services. Welcome to Cookie Gear and BS. Happy pre-holiday Wednesday here. This is kind of like a bonus edition. I wasn't planning on doing a live tonight, and then Jeremy and Carly had said like, "Hey, we want to do this budgeting stuff and go over it and what they want to do." I think it's just such a valuable topic, and I've never gone into this before, which is extra sweet because I always feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I've literally never talked about this before, so I think this is going to be tons of fun. Well, it'll be tons of fun for me. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I'm the bookkeeping nerd here, right? But I think it's going to be tons of fun, and it's going to be super, super valuable because so many of us in the service industry do multiple services. Whether it's window cleaning and pressure washing, home cleaning and commercial cleaning, lawn care and landscaping. Today we're talking about pressure washing and paver sealing. And so the question oftentimes comes up, at what point and how do you budget for these different services that you offer? Because the cost of supplies might be different. The way you price it might be different. The way you like actually go out and do the job might be different. And so when is it different enough to build a specific plan around it? So that's what we're going to get into today. Before we start nerding out on that, I got Jeremy and Carly Brook on the show, who are like the guinea pigs. This was their idea. And so whenever somebody has an awesome idea and volunteers to be on the show, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So Jeremy and Carly, I can't tell. Your screen is very glitchy, but I'm not sure if it's me because I am in northern Wisconsin and my internet is pretty insufficient. Am I glitchy on your end at all?
No.
Okay. It's you're a little glitchy on my end, but let me see how it's looking on Facebook. We'll go for it, and then if it's not working out, we'll maybe have you guys log off and sign back on and do one of those things. But how are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? What's new in your business as you start rolling into 2021 here?
Great question. I would say probably the first time, and I know it sounds silly, but for the first time, we're actually creating a marketing calendar and we're budgeting for it. So it's interesting because you know, if you don't know your numbers, right, it's like in your mind you're thinking, oh well, I can't spend this much money on marketing, I can't spend much on this, you know. If you're thinking all these things you want to aggressively go after as far as marketing, and then it's like in your mind, if you don't know your numbers, you're like, wow, that's a lot of money, right? But then when you really do the budget and you see it in front of you, you're like, oh wow, I'm actually spending less than where I need to be percentage wise for this marketing plan, you know. Yeah, so it's kind of like cool.
A ton of money. It does.
Yes. Yeah, it does.
But
it really does.
The number one investment in your business. It's literally like it is your stock market. It's your place to go have your money make you more money. How did you do as we start planning for your 2021? I think talk about the services that you offer and how you did in 2020. That will kind of inform us for this coming year.
Go ahead. You can talk about our services.
Okay, so we offer exterior cleaning or pressure washing or power washing, wherever part of the country you're from. We're in Florida, we say pressure washing. So we do pressure washing and we do paver sealing. That's our main two services that we offer.
And as far as last year, we were like 50-50 with both when we look at the whole year, but we definitely have some months where let's see, like what was it, last June we were like 82% paver sealing and 18% pressure washing, soft washing. So throughout our year it really fluctuates.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is that what you would expect? Is that you'd have seasonal differing swings between the two, or would you have expected that they would normally swing together? Like what's strong in the spring would be strong for both of them?
I think that was a little bit post-COVID. I think that was unusual for this last year because that was June. We lost some employees because of COVID. We had to push some work back. So I do think that was a little unusual for a typical June for us. But we do have some fluctuations. You know, spring is really a heavy time. We have a lot of paver sealing in the spring and then a lot again in the fall where we are. So that was a little unusual in the summer that we were so heavy, you know, for paver sealing especially.
Gotcha. So Trevor just said my volume is odd, so I'm gonna try switching my microphone. I didn't bring like my good microphone with. I'm clearly in a cabin. You can tell because of there's a fireplace here and there's deer antlers there and there's fish on the wall here. I'm up north. Sounds good. So with that seasonality, it'll be kind of interesting trying to like decide how much of that we let influence 2021 versus what we decide is like, that was just 2020 being 2020. Do you expect pressure washing and paver sealing? Like, so for those that are watching here, those are like the two different services, right? And that's what we're gonna be focusing on tonight is like when you've got these two different services, at what point are they like really different versus close enough? And how do we decide when we're going to budget separately for them? So that's kind of the topic tonight. So you said you're around 50-50 with some goofy seasonal swings between the two. Do you expect going forward they're going to stay 50-50? Do you think they're just naturally going to shift one way or the other? Or are you intentionally going to shift and do more of one or the other?
I think probably, again, it's going back to the knowing the numbers, right? So we thought before that we actually did a lot more sealing than we did washing. But when we actually, you know, when we had our one-to-one with you and we broke apart our CRM and kind of really put it out on paper, our services, we realized, wow, we're really pretty 60-40, almost 50-50. So I think we're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the washing side starting off of the year. Just kind of where we want to go as far as the revenue we want to hit, at least for the marketing we want to hit and spend. So yeah. We're going to probably start off strong with trying to do washing, and because really organically we get a lot of sealing leads organically through Facebook. So
Yep. Now, I wonder, and this is just like a random hypothesis, and we'd have to test it. Did it just feel like you did more paver sealing because that was more of a pain in the butt? Like, is it just that you you feel like you did more of it because you were having to think about it more, or do you have an idea why you would have thought you did more, but then when you looked at it, it was about the same?
Yeah, because maybe
I have
it
no
felt
idea
like
what the right answer to that question is. That was just like a goofy conversation I had.
Yeah, so I'll give you a goofy answer that it probably just felt like we did more. You know, it just seems like if not really tracking everything that we get more demand for it. It seems that way. Like we're getting a lot more requests for it. So it seems like we're doing it more. But then again, like we said, when we kind of split apart and we really looked at everything on paper, we're like, oh wow, it felt like we did more sealing, but it was pretty much neck and neck.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, I was just thinking through like what would cause the difference. Maybe like more leads, but they convert a little bit less as we're like building up with the sales and marketing plan. When you do paver sealing, you're buying more supplies, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today in the budgeting. And so you just notice more because you have to think about it more, because when you have this big job, you got to buy more stuff for it. And so you have to, it's not just like, yep, let's just run out and knock out this pressure washing job. It's like, no, we got this, it's almost like a project, right? Less of a route, more of a project type of thing. So we'll figure out, Trevor asked what city you guys are in.
We're like the Tampa.
You're in. Okay.
Sorry, what business or what city?
Give them both. Give them both.
All right, we're like in the Tampa area, and we offer pressure washing and paver sealing primarily.
Cool.
Two main services.
So before we get in, and now just so everybody can brace themselves, we're gonna do some live spreadsheeting later. So I'm gonna save that real fun stuff for like 5-10 minutes from now, and we're gonna I'll be driving, and then Jeremy and Carly are gonna be giving me some digits, And then we're going to start thinking through and like expanding the budget sheet. So if you're here right now and you haven't gotten a target budget sheet, go get your target budget sheet. I don't care what industry you're in. I've got one for window cleaning, pressure washing, lawn care and landscaping, janitorial, home cleaning, pest control, junk removal. I probably missed one. Just go out to our website. I'll put it in the comments here. Ben and Trevor, I did not get one done for sewer and drain. I'll build that one with you guys next time. But let me drop our website in. It's free. Just go get it. And then you'll have it while we're talking about this, so you know what the heck we're talking about. It's just on our website. There's a drop down. You can't miss it. Template budget sheets. And they're built with like the targets that you should be going after as you scale your business percentage wise. So go grab that. That's what we're going to be working on with Jeremy and Carly, is actually like building up their budget for next year. And I'm going to quick lay out how to think through the different levels of splitting services up in your business from like a financial perspective. And I've got 4 different levels that you can think about as you consider how you differentiate your different services and to what point you like mathematically calculate them differently. So I'm going to go through those 4 levels, and then we're going to decide which level we want to be at with Jeremy and Carly's business. And this level can change year to year depending on how you're scaling and what your strategy is and how you measure yourself. So this isn't static, but we'll pick one to use for 2021. And it's good to use the same one for the full year. And then if you're like, yeah, we got to get more precise, or hey, we're being way too precise and this is taking forever, let's back it off and kind of ease back to the next best level, if you will. So I'll go through these 4 levels, and then we're going to do the screen share. We're going to dive in and actually like modify the pressure washing target budget sheet to add rows in that'll kind of hit on what we talk about with these levels. So I wrote this stuff down ahead of time because I didn't want to blab too much about it. So I'm going to check my notes. First though, level 1 is going to be where you just like don't split anything up. So we're talking about different services here. And if those different services aren't so different, meaning that you're using the same labor, maybe you're not using the same supplies, but the cost of those supplies relative to the revenue of the job is about the same. And even like the hourly rate that you bill, or the square footage rate, or just like your production rate out of the job is really similar, I'm going to say you don't have to split those up at all. So we're talking about multiple services. Should you split them up? How much should you split them up? If we're talking about services that are really similar, you're using the same type of people, or at least paying them the same type of wage, and the revenue you generate from it is similar on an hourly basis or a production basis, the supplies, maybe although different, cost about the same, no need to split them up. To me, like the best example of that is like window cleaning and gutter cleaning. Yeah, they're 2 totally different services, but you do them at about the exact same rate. The same people can go out and do both of them. Like window cleaning, you take a little bit more expertise maybe to actually go clean a window with a squeegee versus go clean a gutter and bag it and take it. But your production is pretty darn similar. The revenue that you're getting from the client is pretty darn similar. If you're doing window cleaning and gutter cleaning, you don't need to break those apart as 2 separate services. Generally, it's the same people going out to do them. You're using the same ladders. It's shared enough. So level 1 is no split. The same would be like if you're doing residential home cleaning and you also do like some deep cleans. Not everything is recurring cleaning, but some is deep cleaning. Again, you're generally using the same labor and the supplies are similar. The way you charge it out might be a little bit different, but it's similar enough you don't need a split. That's level 1. Level 2 is where we're going to start splitting some stuff up. And we've got 3 different levels here where we're actually going to like start breaking apart the business to some extent to capture our revenue and our costs separately. So level 2 would be splitting up the supply costs. And Jeremy and Carly, I think, and we already started doing this with you guys in 2020. And I think this is probably where we're at for 2021. It'll be between this and the next level, but I think this is probably the right level for now. Won't be forever. But we're going to split up supply costs between different service offerings, and we're going to capture their revenue separate. Now, the reason we do it is because the bill rate to the customer is different, and how you bill it to the customer is different, and or how you pay the employees might be a little bit different. Or in this case, one of the big differences is paver sealing has a whole lot of supply costs, like supplies and materials that you leave at the job site. Pressure washing has more tools and equipment costs, maybe, where you're buying pressure washers and hose reels and stuff, and those get used from job to job to job. And we always differentiate between supplies and materials that get consumed at a job site versus tools and equipment that get used job after job after job after job. Super important to separate those two. But in this case, with pressure washing and paver sealing, the bill rate can be pretty different. The way the job gets done is different enough where paver sealing can be a little bit more of like a project, a little bit bigger average job size, and quite a bit more in supply costs. And so because they're just different enough, even if you're using the same labor to do both of them, breaking apart the revenue and knowing which falls into which category within your CRM, so that you know, like, you have two types of revenue. You got pressure washing revenue, you got paver sealing revenue. Having a way to tell those. Now, in QuickBooks, they don't need to be different. QuickBooks is cash. Anything that's sales deposits, just dump it into QuickBooks. It's so easy to go get a report out of your CRM and then break apart your accrual-based revenues there between pressure washing and paver sealing. So get those revenues separate. The labor, you won't be able to separate, really. It'd be tough to separate the labor here if they're the same people doing each task. Yeah, one day they might be pressure washing, one day could. But unless you're paying them wildly different, it's not going to add a whole lot of value to split up the labor. But for sure, you want to split up those supply costs so that you know how much you're putting into those paver sealing supplies, and you can pay your labor accordingly, like subtract it out, so you're not paying them on revenue that's really just compensating you for your supplies. So in this case, another example would be like window cleaning and pressure washing. Similarly, the supplies and the tools and the equipment for window cleaning and pressure washing are different, just like paver sealing and pressure washing is. So while you might use the same labor to do both, you're not using that pressure washer to clean the windows generally, and you're not using your water fed pole to do pressure washing. So this level 2 is just mostly about having separate categories for splitting up supplies. Another one that a lot of us get into is like holiday lights. And we use our crews, the rest of our crews, to go hang holiday lights, but they're like, the supplies and holiday lights are wildly different, right? Like, you're buying stuff that gets used and left at a job site for 3-4 years and you use it over and over again. Like, splitting up holiday light supplies is a must. So that's level 2, supply level splitting. Level 3 is taking it to the next level, where you're also maybe using specific labor for that service. And so, Carly and Jeremy, for you guys, right now, I don't think you're using different labor for pressure washing than you are for paver sealing, correct? Okay. So,
Yeah, no.
So at some point, you probably will. When both businesses are doing $1 million and you have 5 people doing each, you like, maybe you'll borrow some labor every once in a while. When one gets really busy, you'll have a couple of people that can swing. But in general, at some point, you're going to have dedicated routes, because you're just going to build that expertise and you'll be more efficient that way. When you're smaller, it doesn't make sense to do that, because it's like, well, we've got 2 trucks, and unless we have equal amounts of pressure washing and paver sealing on the schedule, we can't really split them up. Like, this day they might both be doing pressure washing, and this day they might both be doing paver sealing, but we can't dedicate a truck to each, because the amount of work on any given day is too unreliable that it would be perfectly split between the 2 services, right? So at some point, you get to this COGS level split. So level 3 is where you have separate cost of goods sold for each division of your business. So I'm not talking about having different businesses. These 2 different service offerings are still going to share the same leadership, the same rent, the office that you rent and the warehouse that you rent, probably the same person answering the phone from them. You're probably even going to do marketing that still markets to both, and you're going to leverage that client list across both. So you're not splitting up the entire business, but the cost of goods sold, the stuff that's happening in the field at this level 3, is different, because you're going to have dedicated crews, and you're going to have a manager just managing pressure washing people, and you're going to have a manager just managing the paver sealing people, and they're going to need their own cost of goods sold to know how they're doing. Like the manager needs to know those numbers to know, are we winning or are we losing? Am I doing a good job or am I not doing a good job? So that's level 3, is when you totally split up the cost of goods sold between the 2 different divisions. They're still running under the same roof, same leadership and all that, but you've got like different production managers for each one. So we have that in our businesses, like in our Cincinnati location, we have window cleaning, pressure washing, that sort of stuff, all in one division, if you will. And we also have home cleaning. Well, the employees are totally different. The managers are totally different. In window cleaning, we have company cars, right? We're driving around our Ford Transit vans. In home cleaning, our employees drive their own cars. So the business model is totally different. But we still have Christina answering the phone, and she can sell both, and they're both in the same location, and they both pay the same liability insurance bill. So the overhead's all still shared, and we still market them together. They're on the same website. So that's level 3. You get gross margin, you get cost of goods sold, revenue minus cost of goods sold is your gross margin. So you have gross margin for each. You can hold your managers accountable to that, the cost of goods sold. The rest is all shared. The last level is total separate division of entities. So you're setting up LLCs for each different business. And now at some point, they might get so big that they don't even work in the same space anymore. So they could, like, if both businesses are 10 to 20 million dollars and they just can't, like, the cultures are different and they can't use the same resources, and they both need their own separate phone staff because there's just so big, and you just need people that are dedicated resources to either business, then you start thinking about splitting them up as separate LLCs, or if they're geographically different. So like in our business, we have a Minneapolis location that's its own LLC, and we have a Cincinnati location that's its own LLC. And yeah, like they all report up to me. And so the leadership at the highest level is the same, but the managers that run those locations are totally dedicated and really have nothing to do with the other location unless they need some shared expertise, right? So that's kind of the last level. Is at some point they either get so big or they're far enough apart that they can't share a whole lot, and then they're their own LLCs. So level 1 again is just not splitting anything, because the businesses are really similar. Even if it's different service, it's really similar, like window cleaning and gutter cleaning. Don't worry about splitting that stuff up. The next one is supply splitting, which in level 2 here and level 3 are very similar, just depends on the size. But level 2 would be supply splitting, where you're generally using the same labor, but the supply costs in the business model between the 2 things is just different enough that you want to be able to capture those different supply costs. Window cleaning and pressure washing are different enough that you should capture those separately. Pressure washing and paver sealing, lawn care and landscaping. Those are just different enough that you want to capture those 2 different streams of supplies. Now, as your business gets bigger, you hit level 3, which is you want total separate cost of goods sold for each division in the business, because you have dedicated people and dedicated trucks just doing those things. Level 4, separate LLCs. So I know that was a huge, ridiculous monologue from me, and that was just a ton of talking. But I hope there's still people watching, so it couldn't have been the worst thing in the world. And I made notes of it, so if you ask me about it later, I'll regurgitate all that. But so that's it. Those are the 4 different levels. And Jeremy and Carly, my thought is we kind of started doing level 2 with you guys this year, where we started splitting up supply costs between paver sealing and pressure washing. And we're probably still there for 2021, do you think? Or are we pushing towards the level 3 where we split up the entire cost of goods sold and even trying to split up the labor?
I'm thinking level 2.
I find it's easiest, like keep it as simple as possible. You'll know when you need to go to the next level. Don't try to like think you need to go to the next level. If you have to think about it at all, don't try to like split up cost of goods sold, because what generally happens is you create a bunch of work for yourself, and then you have to just make ridiculous assumptions, and then you're like, oh, those assumptions don't actually hold, and then you can't really keep making them, and then you just like forget about the whole thing and just lump it all together because it gets too muddy. So I think it's the simpler you can keep it, the better. At some point, you kind of get forced to the next level. Like I said, when you're so big that you're running dedicated crews, and then it's like, well, I have to know how much labor I'm spending on this thing or that thing. I can't really run this business without knowing that. It'll force you into that next level. John said, can you repeat all that? Yes,
Yes.
I can. It looks like that. Take a screenshot. All right, here we go. So let's do before we do a screen share, any thoughts, questions, or concerns, Jeremy or Carly, before we start mathing?
No, just that everyone should get your target budget sheet because it's been a game changer for us. Because I'm that type of guy that, like, I don't know if I want to get into the whole level 3, to the point where if I don't feel like I need to go there, I can have something set up by you and saying, okay, at least if I know percentage wise where I need to be in these categories, I'm good, and I'm okay with that, and I leave the other stuff up to you. That's why you're my bookkeeper.
Oh, yeah. I like that strategy. All right, let's dive in. Let me do a screen share, and we're going to start breaking this thing down live in person here. So I gotta move my phone enough that somehow I can still see what's going on it, but I can also see my screen. Let's do first thing. When budgeting is, you always start with sales, and generally, actually, I'd start with marketing, which, like you said, you built a marketing calendar, and that is exactly right. That's exactly what you want to do, is start thinking about how much you're going to spend on marketing for the different things, how many clients you expect to get from that, repeats, referrals, all that stuff. That's all in the sales and marketing tab. For this exercise, just so it's not the worst thing in the world to try to watch, we're going to refrain from doing that for now. But Jeremy and Carly, if we want to circle back and do that, the three of us can do that together and not entertain everybody else with it. For those that are watching this and are like, hey, I kind of would be curious in doing it the right way, and I want to start with my marketing, there's a video that you can watch. Actually, there's a couple different ones depending on your industry of how to think about your sales and marketing. And that's really where you should start with the budget, is how much am I going to spend on marketing and what am I going to get for it? That's where budgeting truly starts. We're going to fast track that, partially because I know Jeremy and Carly already did some of that work. And so they kind of already have revenue targets by month in mind. So we're just going to start there and then work on this main tab here. So the first thing that we're going to do is add a row here. So we've got budgeted sales for manual entry, but we're going to put in pressure washing budgeted sales. And then we're also going to have paver sealing budgeted sales. So that's kind of the first step, is we got to have 2 sets of budgeted sales, because we want to be able to say this was this and this was this, and what percent of supplies of that revenue was it. When we're talking about level 2, again, we're splitting up the supply costs that are respective to each of these things. So why don't we, Jeremy and Carly, can you rattle off how you guys have this split up today? Do you have by month pressure washing revenue targets and paver sealing revenue targets all ready to go?
Yeah, we started with just kind of rough numbers now, and I know seasonality and things like that might change things, but yeah, we did start with the sales and marketing tab, came up with targets that way, and then I kind of just based it on our historical percentages that we've had in the past. So cool. It may not be exactly like that this year, but it's a starting point.
So whichever one you want to go with, you want to just give me the high level numbers and we'll punch it in here and then take it from there?
Sure. You starting with paver sealing or pressure washing?
Whichever one's right in front of you.
All right, let's go with pressure washing. In January, our target, I'm just going to kind of round the numbers if that's okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. It's 47,000. February is 49,000. March is 31. April is 30. May is 29. June is 15. July is 25. August is 20. September is 30. October is 42. November is 42. December is 50.
I missed 1-0. I'm
I
a
saw
failure.
that.
I'm a failure. At least I saw it. And then I was like, oh, should I go back and put it in? Oh, wait, no, because Carly's gonna keep reading. I'll have to go back. I got it.
Sorry.
Don't worry about me. All right. Hit
All
me
right,
with some
paver-
paver ceiling numbers.
Yeah, paver ceiling 16,000 in January, 22 in February, 51 in March, 35 in April, 26 May, June is 66, July 42. I'm sorry. Yeah, August is 48. I'm sorry, 58. September is 57. October is 63. November is 38. And December is 21.
All right. I gotta make a quick edit. So if you're doing this in your budget, while you're watching this, you're pausing it, you're going back, you're adjusting your budget sheet to try to add one in. There's a formula in here that basically says, like, if you can see it's an if statement, which basically says if you're using the sales and marketing tab, if the sales and marketing tab says use in it, then it's going to grab that. Otherwise, it's grabbing F7. So all I'm going to do is say F7 plus F8. And then to copy and paste, the fastest way is just to grab this little thingy down here and rip her across the screen. And it kind of carried my formatting, but whatever. So now the total revenue here, the total budgeted sales are going to be the combination of these two. So now we've got a sales number in there. Now, from a wage perspective, as we build this out, and I know you guys have already messed with the budget sheet a little bit. Did you leave that 25% in? You're using the same labor across both things. Is it going to be a little higher with paver ceiling in there, a little lower with paver ceiling in there? What do you guys think?
I mean, historically, we've been higher with paver ceiling in there. I mean, we did this time, like, we really liked the payroll tab, and so we built that out.
Oh man, you guys really nerded out.
Yeah, we tried. Your videos were great.
I like
Them videos, man. It's all about those videos.
When I made that payroll video, I think I was like, I was on a time crunch. I woke up at like 4 a.m. because I was going on a hunting trip with my dad, and I had to leave town at a certain point in time and still like pack my truck for a week-long bow hunting trip. So I woke up at 4 after going to bed at like midnight because I was up filming the videos the night before and like trying to get them all done. I think it was the payroll one. I'm surprised that it was useful because I don't remember anything that I said in it. But I'm glad they worked. So did you, in this budget, did you leave it at around 25%, or did you come up with a different number after you filled out the payroll tab?
Let's see. No, we ended up being right at 25% still.
Nice. How do you think about just like, and this is more of a question for those that are watching. And I'll tell you how we kind of think about this in Blue Skies. How did you think about pressure washing labor versus paver sealing labor, and the fact that, like, are the production rates a little bit different? Like, do you do one of them faster, like more dollars per hour than the other one? Are they about the same? Do you pay commission rates or hourly? Like, how did you kind of come to the numbers that got you to 25%?
Yeah, so we switched over this last year to commission. And so that has really helped us to stay about the same, both, even though our services are so different. But based on the hours and the amount of revenue, we still have kind of the same capacity with both services. It hasn't really changed. It's more sometimes just those supply costs that kind of, like, we have been paying our guys more for that, and probably should look at taking some of those costs, especially out of paver sealing, and then paying them their percentage with that taken out. So
yeah, to that point, we kind of have the same issue with pressure washing, because in pressure washing we have way more chemicals than window cleaning. Window cleaning, we produce at a slower dollar per hour, but really we've just got like ladders and Dawn dish soap. Like we're not doing much, scientific stuff. We don't use a lot of water fed pole because up north where we are, like we can only use them for a couple months out of the year before they start freezing up on us. And we're still out cleaning windows now, and it was 10 degrees the other day. So, but when we do pressure washing, we have way more chemical. We have bigger equipment, right? That costs more. And so if we paid, and we made this mistake for a long time, is we paid the same commission that we did on window cleaning, not accounting for the fact that we also had way more in chemical and way more in the tools and equipment for the pressure washers. And so although we could produce more dollars of pressure washing in a day, our gross margin percentage was worse because we paid the same labor and we had more costs in the rest of our P&L. So to exactly what you're saying, there's two ways to solve that problem. And I'm going to try to say this real slow so that everybody pays attention, because this is super, super important for how you pay your people and how to calculate it. There's two ways to solve the problem of when one service has more in supplies and other costs than the other service. One way, to what you just said, Carly, is to reduce the cost of those supplies from the revenue itself. So if you're going to go do a paver sealing job and it's a $2,000 job, and $500 of that is paver sealing supplies, and I'm just using an easy round number. Instead of paying commission on the $2,000 of revenue for that job, you subtract the $500 and you pay commission on just the $1,500, the revenue not already allocated out to cover the supply costs, right? And so that would be one way of getting to it. And you can get to the same thing by basically just reducing the commission rate that you pay on that $2,000 of revenue by the amount of supplies that you have invested in it. So if paver sealing was 25% supplies in that example, just reduce your commission rate by 25%. So if you were paying 20% commission, reduce the commission rate down to 15%, and it'll get you to the same thing. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it took me way too long to figure that out in our Minneapolis business. And what we found, so we were paying everybody 25% commission because we were mostly doing window cleaning. And all of a sudden we started doing more and more soft washing, pressure washing stuff. And that was great. We were making a lot of money, but we were paying out a lot of money because now we had more chemical costs and more pressure washers going down and more investment in that stuff. And what happened was we kind of stuck. Like, it's really hard once you've started paying somebody something to be like, oh, we got to reduce your commission rate, or we got to reduce how much we're paying you per hour, however you do it. And what we ended up doing was we raised our prices pretty substantially, and then we dropped their commission down, but we could at least sell it to our employees as, you're going to get a raise. Like, yeah, your commission on just soft washing we brought down to 20%, because that was about the ratio of supply costs that we had. So we lowered their commission rate on soft washing, but they would still get paid more because we raised the prices more than we lowered their commission. We kind of were in that same trap. And that was how we had to handle it, to not make them feel like we were just pulling the rug out from under them. But I think that's just such a key point. So I wanted to hit on that one. All right. So we're at 25% labor. Now, as we work through the rest of this P&L, we're going to have, workers' comp. I don't like workers' comp. I think you can just take the blended average of the two different rates. I'm guessing between pressure washing and paver sealing, it's not going to be a whole lot. And uniforms and apparel, not much different. Damages and repairs, not much different. Fuel and parking, not going to be a whole lot different between pressure washing and paver sealing. Merchant fees, not going to be a whole lot different. It comes down to the supplies and materials section. So the supplies and the chemicals are what's getting used at the job site. The tools and equipment are the things that get used from job to job to job. So what we talked about is in level 2 of this, breakout, we want to split up those supply costs between pressure washing and between paver sealing. And so we're gonna add some rows in here. And now I'll circle back to that question. We're gonna add some rows in here, and we're gonna make these percentages a percentage of that specific revenue stream, not of total revenue. And mathematically, you could do it either way, and you could take the weighted average and come up with what percent this should be of total revenue based on the percent of revenue coming from one versus the other. But we're just gonna draw a line specific to that revenue type, so we can say, our paver sealing supply costs as a percent of paver sealing are going to be X. So I'm going to mathematically change these formulas and I'll like highlight them so we remember that. Quick question. Do you guys have regular equipment rental expenses in either pressure washing or paver sealing at all? Or would those be pretty random if you did?
Yeah, that's really random. We don't rent.
Okay, we don't either, but every once in a while, like we find a job where we're like, we might need a lift for that.
Mhm.
But like rarely do we end up renting one. So because it's a rarity, anytime it's not like a regular course of business and it'd be an anomaly, like it happens once or twice a year, maybe, don't worry about budgeting for it. Or don't worry about like carving it out. Maybe like budget for it evenly in all months. If you know it's going to happen, you just don't know when it's going to happen. Just like spread the cost out across all months, because don't try to like pick which month it's going to happen in unless you know which month it's going to happen in. In this case, let's skip equipment rental, but we're going to add 2 rows in here. And I'm basically just going to take these 2, copy and paste them and put them. Oh, come on. All right. I didn't like my row grab. So let me be a little more precise here. So we're going to say this is supplies and materials, washing, supplies and chemicals, pressure washing, tools and equipment. And this is going to be paver sealing. And we are going to, again, take these percentages and I'm going to, instead of, I do this in the same, come on, scroll bar thing. Okay, pressure washing is first, same place. So I'm going to just adjust these formulas. So instead of it reading off of the total revenue, I'm just going to have it read off of the actual pressure washing revenue itself. So I'm going to do the same with this one here. And then for paver sealing, I'm going to have it read off of the paver sealing line. So that we're calculating. And then I'm going to take all 4 of these and drag them across. And just because I'm like enough OCD, if you're like me and you're like, oh, I don't like that those formatted different because it pulled over, just do this format painter thing. And then just give her one of these dealy deals and it'll make it look all pretty again. All right, so I'm just gonna zero these out and we're gonna act like they actually, let me leave them. I'll leave the pressure washing because in general, those targets wouldn't change based on the pressure washing revenue. Now, Jeremy and Carly, do you guys like targets are specific to your business? And, you know, in Florida, you might be able to buy bleach cheaper. So maybe your chemical price is lower. Maybe something else costs more. Do you have a general sense for that, like supplies and chemicals for the bleach, the, you know, surfactants, whatever else you got? Would you change that 6% to be higher or lower, or just go with the 6?
I think it might be a little bit lower. You know, we like the last, I don't know, quarter of the year, I guess. Well, kind of, as I look back at our P&Ls from last year, we really just separated out the paving supplies, not tools and equipment. And so when I'm looking back at that, we averaged like 9% for paver sealing.
Okay.
And then, but then I know a lot of our supplies and chemicals, you know, they kind of stretch across both. Like we use chlorine, you know, bleach in both. So I think some of them were still like mixed in. We didn't do our best at like separating, because when our guys go and fill up, you know, on chemical, they're using it for both. You know, we have our trailers are being used for both jobs. So it's kind of hard to really fine tune it. But I would like,
for something like this, I always like to use the term that the old controller, when I was in the corporate world, I had a controller that I worked with that was phenomenal. And his term for something to exactly what you're describing, where it's like we use it for this thing and we use it for that thing, and there's not a great way to, like per transaction split up. The term you used was directionally correct. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be like exact. It just needs to be something where we can be like, yeah, that makes sense. So I think you hit it on the head. So you said you're at 9%, but that included some of the chemical that would have gone to paver sealing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we were at 9% for paver sealing supplies and chemicals on average from the like quarter that we kind of really tracked it well last year. Yeah. And then like all of our tools and equipment were kind of lumped together, and we were at like 4% last year for both.
Okay. Did in supplies and chemicals, that 9%, was that for that? You said paver sealing supplies and chemicals. Do we have anything specifically just going to pressure washing supplies and chemicals in addition to that 9% that went to paver sealing?
Yeah. Well, that's where like it was higher. Like at times last year, I think by the end of the year, it says we were at like 12%, but I don't like all that paver supply was really pulled out of that percentage. So
yeah, especially from earlier in the year too.
Right.
So let's keep that at 6.
Okay.
And I think so budgeting is so much of a goofy, like half art, half science. Like we can look back, but then we got to take everything with a grain of salt, because the way we measure things going forward is always going to be based on the business we expect to have going forward. And the needs of that growing business is always going to be different than the business we used to have. Like that will inform us to do things differently and to figure out what we want to measure and how we want to measure it. But we should always be like looking forward. At the same time, when you look forward, you're always biased by what's happened in the past anyway. So let's leave 6%, just knowing like if we could perfectly separate, if as the chlorine got pulled into your gun, the dollars started splitting up, and it knew that this chlorine that got sprayed over here was pressure washing, and the chlorine that came out over here was paver sealing. Like ideally, we'd want it to be 6% of the revenue for pressure washing, that it was pressure washing chemicals. So let's keep that target in there, and we'll get better at measuring to it over time. And if we need to change it and change our expectations, we can do that in the future. But I wouldn't make any other assumption than that. And I would also say, you said your tools and equipment was at 4% for last year. I would assume and just make the judgment like 3% is generally pretty close for pressure washing tools and equipment. I'm thinking paver sealing, you probably don't have quite as much tools and equipment as you do pressure washing. Do you think that's a fair assumption?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do 1% in here. And that kind of gets to the 4% that you had across the board last year. And this 1% will be based on, this specific paver sealing revenue, whereas this 3% will be based on the specific pressure washing revenue. But it'll be around that 4%. And now, so for paver sealing supplies and chemicals, you had, and I'm just like regurgitating here to make sure I have it correct. You had said 9% for the year was under paver sealing, 12% was under pressure washing, but we know that they weren't allocated perfectly throughout the year. And if it's 12 and 9, we're around 20% total going to supplies and chemicals. And so I'm kind of thinking if we say 6% was probably pressure washing, of that 20%, it would leave about 14% for paver sealing. And so I'm literally just typing it in to see your reaction. Does that like feel good? Like if I told you, hey, you spend 14% on paver sealing supplies, like I don't do paver sealing, so I probably don't even know all the supplies that go into it. But you mentioned chlorine, like you're spraying everything, you're cleaning everything. You're obviously throwing some sand down. You probably have some sealant or something you're putting over it. Is 14% ballpark?
I mean, it seems high to me, but
okay. I kind of wonder too. So last year combined, your supplies and chemicals are around 20%. But as you're also like scaling up, you tend to have a little bit higher supply cost. partially just because it's hard to be as efficient. And you're just buying it more often, it seems like. Instead of buying in bulk, you have to buy it in smaller batches, which raises your costs a little bit. So, I mean, it's your budget. Do you want to get more aggressive with it and shoot for 10, 12, something in between?
Yeah, that would be good.
Well, what would be good? A beer? Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be good. My dad walked by before, and I kind of had to like give him the whisper, like, hey, beer.
You think 10 to 12?
I think 12 would be.
12?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 12 would be a little bit more.
Let's shoot for 12. So as we're doing this, like one of the things that I like about budgeting is that it doesn't matter if you're right. Like budgeting is important to like set a target. And I was talking about this on another podcast or webinar thing that I did, but the example that I have that's similar is my wife works for 3M in the corporate world, and she gets asked a lot by higher ups, like, what do you want to do? Where are you going? And like, where do you want this career trajectory to go? And she makes me look like a schmuck. She's freaking brilliant, and like she could go do whatever she wanted. And so they're gonna ask her like what she wants to do, and she doesn't like that question. She's like, I don't know. And I was like, nobody knows. You don't need to know. All you need to do is have an answer for that question. Nobody's gonna remember what you said, and you don't like. Not that you want to lie and make stuff up, but like say what you are thinking right now. And it's okay to change your mind, because nobody's going to remember what you said. They're just going to remember, like, did you have an articulate answer? And were you confident? And did you have something you wanted to go do? And budgeting is kind of the same way. Nobody's going to remember what you said you were going to do, but I guarantee you're going to do better if you have a plan and you have something that you're shooting for. Like in 2020, by the end of March, anybody that had a plan had to totally change their plan. But at least they knew why they were changing it and what they were trying to get back to. And I know, like for us in our Cleveland business, we have metrics and targets that we need to hit. When COVID hit, we bailed out of our rent agreement because our fixed costs were too high. We knew we had to get our fixed costs back down to a certain percentage that the business could sustain, or the business wasn't going to sustain. And so while we weren't even freaking close to hitting our budget, if we didn't have that budget and know what we were trying to hit, we wouldn't have had the confidence to make a really hard decision and like, bail on a lease agreement that we had. So anyway, point being, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be directionally correct. And you can like go through it for 3 months. And if you're seeing something different, change it for the next 3 months, like re-budget, reset targets based on what you're seeing. And if you can do better, or if you need to like give yourself a little swag and borrow money from another place in your budget, at least you have something to measure against and measure to. So
yeah, actually thinking about it now, I'm looking at the cost of our sealer per square footage and what our goals are. I actually would go back to 14%. Looking at it, just strictly the price of the sealer. And that's on the higher end of what we can cover. There's like a range of, what you can cover with that sealant per square footage. But when I just factored it out, I think it is going to be closer to 14%.
Yep. So now, and here's where like having this breakdown of supplies and why like level 2 is really good for this, where level 1 being you don't split anything, you just kind of mash it all together across different service offerings. The example I made was window cleaning and gutter cleaning. It's so similar. The supply costs are really similar. The labor is really similar. Just mash that all together. It's basically the same thing. Yeah, you're doing something different when you're out there, but the way you bill it, the labor they use, it's all very similar. In this case, we're at level 2 where we split up just the supply costs. We're not splitting up the labor here because we're doing it with the same crew. And in general, they're maybe getting even paid the same. But this tells us a lot of what we need to know about how to, especially if we're going to pay commission, how to structure their pay so that the gross margin that you make, the money you have left after you go do a job, is the same % of revenue in either case. So you're just as excited to go sell a paver sealing job as you are to go sell a pressure washing job. And we can see very clearly from this, we expect to have around 10% of our revenue that comes from pressure washing out the door right away for equipping the truck, for the chemical that we're spraying, all that stuff. But when we do a paver sealing job, that's 15%. 5% more of our revenue is out the door the minute we go do a job. And therefore, to keep our cost of goods sold the same, which is the goal, we want that cost of goods sold to be the same percentage wise, no matter what we go out and do. Like that's building a sustainable business model that you can just repeat over and over and over again. The place to get it is wages. And now I'm not talking about like taking wages out of your employee's pocket. The employee is still going to make really good money on paver sealing because you're passing these costs along to the customer. It's not like it's not built into the price, but you can't pay the same percentage to the employee because so much of that revenue has to go back to paying for the supplies. So in this case, you have a 5% of revenue difference, and that 5% of revenue is basically the 5% less commission you would pay to the employee doing that thing. So if you're going to pay 20% commission for pressure washing jobs, you'd pay 15% commission of the total revenue, that is, for and it's very like random that it worked out because these are the exact same numbers I gave in the example earlier. And I've got, like, as I'm saying this, I'm like, holy shit, these are the same numbers that I said earlier. But if you're paying 20% pressure washing commission, you'd pay 15% paver sealing commission and basically get that 5% back, so that the total cost of goods sold, whether you did one or the other, would end up being exactly the same. That's the percentage you want to be the same. The other way to do it, to what Carly had suggested, is you just take these supplies out of the revenue and then you pay them the same 20% on the revenue minus those supply costs. And it gets you to basically the same spot. You're just not paying an employee commission on money you're charging to the customer just to pay you back for all the sand and the sealer and the stuff that you had to use at that job site. So you can go about it either way, but end point is you split up those supply costs. You can see where you've got more cost of goods sold money set aside for that specific task, which then informs how you should pay the employee. And especially if you're paying commission, you just reduce and again, you're reducing their commission, but they're still going to make great money on it because your average ticket for that thing's going to be higher. So I feel like I beat that one up pretty good. Jeremy and Carly, does that make sense to you guys? And is that kind of where your mind is at?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Cool. So that puts you at 57.5 from actually, that's not even right because it's adding this stuff up. I'm going to just delete that because it doesn't, because of the way we did this, it's going to calculate it a little goofy. I'm going to color this. What color do you guys want this to be? Probably blue. Blue's always a good color. So that's just so that we remember that these are like supply specific percentages. In reality, if we look at it, here's the percent of total revenue. So of total revenue, we're going to have just under 3% to pressure washing, supplies and chemicals, 1.5% to tools and equipment, 7.5% to supplies and chemicals for paver sealing, and 0.5% for tools and equipment for paver sealing. It all adds up to about 45% total cost of goods sold across all of those things. How does that pass your sniff test? Does that seem attractive? Does that seem like what you're shooting for?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So we're like an hour in here, and that was like the main thing I wanted to get out of tonight, because now the rest of the budgeting is kind of the same across the rest of the business, right? The only other thing that we maybe could toy with, and let's not do it, but let's talk about it, is like, so we can kind of talk through your thought process, is the sales and marketing. Because when you get down, so you got your gross margin here in this budget sheet, then you've got your advertising and marketing, and that's like the only thing where you might advertise and market different by service type. So like maybe you can split that up there to help you figure out your sales by service. But the admin costs, right? Who's answering the phone? Who's doing the bookkeeping? Anything that's happening in the office is going to be the same for both services. It's all under the same business. The fixed overhead, the rent, the liability insurance, it's all kind of bundled together for the entire business. The software that you're using, the phones, internet, all that stuff, totally tied together across both businesses. Your variable costs, the recruiting costs, the repairs and maintenance, all that stuff. Again, pretty tied in across both businesses. Tough to split up. Maybe if you've got like totally different assets, you would split up repairs and maintenance. But I think that would be like we don't even do that when we have separate. At level 4, where we have totally separate entities, of course it's split up because we have separate bank accounts for different businesses. But even where we have home cleaning and window cleaning, right? There's really only auto repairs for the for window cleaning for us, so we don't even have to split it up at that point. That would maybe be where you split up some of these other costs, where you've got 2 totally different like divisions of your business. But in general, they're so shared anyway that it all kind of bundles together here. Let's do I go to the sales and marketing here, the advertising marketing section. So when we're looking at advertising and marketing, we're looking at how much we're going to spend and therefore how much we're going to get for it. On this main budget sheet, it's kind of backwards. It feels right in that, oh, we're going to shoot to spend 15% on marketing, but it's kind of backwards. You spend the money on marketing first before you really get the revenue, right? This budget is like, oh, we got the revenue. Now we're going to go spend 15% of it on marketing. In reality, we know it actually works the opposite way. We have to go spend the money on marketing first before we get any of that revenue. We're just going to shoot to, in general, spend around 15. So I guess, Jeremy and Carly, I know you guys nerded out on the sales and marketing tab here. Did you assign marketing spend to each individual service, or did you just say we're going to spend this much and we think that'll get us this much revenue of each service? How did you guys aggregate that?
Yeah, we really lumped it together. I mean, this year our focus is to grow the pressure washing side of our business more than the paver sealing. So most of what we were budgeting to spend, we have a little bit more, in mind for pressure washing. But like, it is interesting to look at like our client acquisition cost historically has been different for paver sealing. It's a little bit higher than for pressure washing. So, when we were using the sales and marketing tab, it was kind of hard to determine and then we're also trying some new marketing avenues this year that we haven't ever in the past. We've had a lot of organic leads and we're pushing more, Google ads and other things that we haven't really had a lot of history to know where we would be.
So one of the things that you said there, I think is super important. And now my itch has been not scratched. I need to scratch the itch now. You've created an itch and I've got to scratch it, which is on that sales and marketing tab. So I'm going to go to that in a second, but I'm going to explain what I'm thinking is even if you're not quite sure how you're going to divvy up your marketing spend, because when you market, a lot of times you're going to be like marketing both. Like you're going to do a flyer, you're going to have both services on there, right? So it's hard to say how much marketing is which. So in general, I mean, based on roughly the percent of revenue you expect to get from each, split up your marketing the same way, or just like, again, directionally correct. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to be able to be like, yeah, that makes sense. If you can nod your head and be like, yeah, that makes sense. And you're not like, no, it doesn't actually make sense. I'm just telling myself that it makes sense. But if you truly believe that it makes sense, like probably close enough, and start like telling yourself the story you want to create. So when we're talking the advertising and marketing spend, just say, if we're going to spend 10 grand this month, 5,000 for each service, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be like, okay, we're going to spend this amount on Google ads for this thing and this amount on Google ads for this thing. All right. On the flyers, this takes up 2/3 of the space on the flyer. This only takes up 1/3. So we got to allocate like, call it 50-50 or something close enough. And because to what Carly said earlier, the acquisition cost is different and the average job size is different. Your acquisition cost, how much you pay to go get that next client, is generally going to be higher on either things that are recurring in nature or on things that have higher ticket prices, because you can pay a higher percentage of that job to go get that job, right? So paver sealing has a higher ticket price. You can afford to go pay more, and therefore you're going to go pay more because you can, and you want to go get that next job. So, and because we're talking about percentages, it still works in your business model. So now let me scratch this itch. Do you guys have time for me to scratch this itch? Or is it past your bedtime yet?
I mean, it's getting close, but a few minutes.
We're good. We're good.
I'm not gonna lie.
We're just gonna duplicate this section, and we're gonna have two of them.
Okay.
And we're gonna say this top one is gonna be pressure washing. And then we're literally just gonna copy this whole thing. And this one's gonna be paper sealing. And it's as simple as that. And I will, just so we can like tell them apart, paper sealing is going to be in blue, pressure washing is in black. So now we've got two different ways of spending on ads, right? And like I said, and so part of me, like, I don't want to like totally give away your business model too, in case somebody else in Tampa is watching and competes with you. So like, I'm going to refrain from at this point putting in all of the assumptions that you're making, but let me just like make some assumptions here to show people how it would work. And then again, we could always go and build this out in yours too, so that you have separate buckets for each of these, and we'll roll it back into that main tab. So let's just say we're going to spend $2,000 a month on ads and $1,000 a month on the people running them. And we're going to drag that across here real quick. And I know that it dragged the things and that drives me nuts, but whatever. And I'm going to put the same thing down here. Now, pressure washing, let's say it's $200 acquisition cost. And do you guys know that your average job size roughly on pressure washing?
I think it's around 520.
We'll go 525. And I'm going to say that you're going to get 2 referral jobs a month. Do you have a salesperson that chases anything around, or is that Jeremy?
Yeah. No, we have another salesperson.
Okay. Do they generate any of their own leads, or are they only chasing leads that you give to them?
Next year, they got to chase their own.
All right. So let's say they get about a lead a week, or a client a week of chasing their own. So they're bringing 525 of revenue of their own, plus they're closing these 15 clients a month from what you spent. And you know, these numbers are just examples, but you're also getting these referrals that they're closing. So you're getting 21 clients a month, average job size of 525. So $11,000. I'm gonna bump these up because I think that's too small of a number to be for where you guys are going. I want to make it like realistic. All right, so we're spending $5,000 a month on the marketing for pressure washing. I just put a $200 average acquisition cost. And now I think it's useful. I've got this cell in here where you can use the same acquisition cost for the whole year. But if you look back in your own business, an acquisition cost is like the easiest thing in the world to calculate. Look at any month, how much did you spend in marketing and how many new clients did you get? And that's pretty much your acquisition cost is spent in marketing, new clients, smash that together and you got an acquisition cost. Now don't like lump in there the referrals because you didn't pay anything for them. Like try to truly look at the ones that came from a non-referral source. You spent ads on it or they came from SEO work that you did, acquisition cost. So we're bringing in $16,000 from that in this case. Not exactly realistic to what you guys got going on. I'm going to build up. I'm going to put more onus on your salesperson. $20,000 a month for pressure washing. That's more like it. So that's pressure washing. Now, there might be some, these are just from new clients. And now you've got how much we did last year. And I'm just going to actually, don't worry about what we did last year. Let's just be really simple and grab, oh, I got to do this here. I'm just going to steal the plan for this year just for an example purpose. And do you know roughly like how many of your clients repeat that are already in your system? Like what percent would go this year that not that they went last year, but that they're current clients, you just have to like send them a text or an email and be like, hey, just a reminder.
Yeah, this was actually hard for us as well because we've had so much like we really haven't, last year we spent so very little on marketing. So like when we were looking at our budget, even with our Conquer coach, like we were looking at like, really for us, it's like, it almost made sense to put like 100%, even though it doesn't mean that like every client comes back, just because we didn't really spend any money on marketing. And yet like the numbers didn't end up making sense for what our repeat revenue was, because that's pretty much all it was last year.
Yeah, it's almost all repeat revenue. And then you'll still get
Because
the
it's
referrals
too,
like that.
you
Yep.
know, because you have those like lumped together as, so they might not have been like our customers before, but they found out about us from our other customers because it was just really all organic leads. So we played around with that number a lot.
I like to separate referrals from repeats and like track when a job comes from a referral, partially so you can say thank you, partially just so you know how many referrals you're getting. And then repeat rate is just super useful because you can like use that, like as your business scales, most of your revenue is going to be a repeat client, like somebody that you've served before. Because when you're doing $1 million, like 600,000 of it is going to be naturally from like to market and go find 400,000 of new business is actually like, that's a lot of new business. A business starting at $0, it's just as easy for them to go get 400,000 of new business this year as it is for you when you're doing $1 million. The difference being when you're doing $1 million, you have the money to spend on marketing to go get 400,000 of new revenue, right? In this case, we're saying we're spending 60,000 and we're getting 240,000 for it. If you spent 100,000, you'd get 400,000 of new clients. But we're also saying in this example, I'll just leave the 50% in here for now. And this is using the revenue you're forecasting. So it's already like slightly unrealistic. It's not last year's revenue, it's your forecasted revenue, but this would be 205,000 from repeat clients, another 240 from new clients. So you'd be 445. That's pressure washing. Now, the reason why it's useful to split this up, and let's say we're spending the same amount of marketing on paver sealing, is because of the first thing you had said, Carly, which is your acquisition cost is different. You're going to spend more to go get that paver sealing client, but that's offset by the fact that your average job size is bigger. So I guess I didn't ask you about this acquisition cost here. Is that 200 close to correct? Do you know what that number is for pressure washing?
I think it's lower than that.
Yeah, I think that's a little too high for us. I mean, we had set ours around 100, but again, we're a little weird because we didn't spend a lot on marketing last year. So, you know, I think sometimes it was like our acquisition cost was only $30, you know, because, you know, we just used some free avenues of marketing.
So that's why I said earlier, it like doing the marketing calendar for this year is a lot of it's going to be some testing of data, because it's like there's been so much organic growth of finding ways to organically grow that, like, when I'm looking at these numbers, I'm like, man, like we do have a lot of money to spend in marketing. So, okay, you know, like let's test some stuff out and let's get a little aggressive, you know?
Yeah. A ratio that I like to keep in mind is in a pressure washing business, you can spend a third of your revenue on marketing and still be break even. So when you go do a new job, yeah, you're going to pay the 45% in cost of goods sold. Skip marketing, you're going to have around 15% in admin, around 5% in fixed, and around 5% in variable. So 25% of overhead with 40 to 45% of cost of goods sold. So you're around like 65 to 70% of your revenue is gone, which means you can spend around 30 to 35% of that revenue on marketing, and you'll make $0 this year. But you also, if you did a good job, you just bought a client for the future, right? And that's where the value comes in, is like, you don't need to make a lot. As your business scales, you don't need to make a lot of money the first time you service a customer. Early on you do, because you're small and you need that money to survive. But as your business scales, it's your repeat clients you get all your money from. The new clients, you can spend up to a third of your revenue to get them, and you still break even. And you know that most of your clients are going to repeat, and therefore they're going to be super valuable to you, and you're looking at the lifetime value. So kind of like the rule of thumb that I like to use is I don't want to lose money on a new client this year, but I'm okay breaking even. I don't need to make money on them. I just need them in my database, and I'll work on them later. We'll go out and serve them now, and then we'll try to hit them again later. So anyway, I put 150 in here, and the reason I kind of started with 200 is that is around a third of $525. And so that's kind of like the threshold of you could go up to that amount. I wouldn't go past that for like the next client that you get. But that's about where you could get to and would still be working in your business model. So I put 150 in here and edged it back down. Now, I forgot that because of the way I have these formulas built, I gotta quick adjust these to feed off of the right. Man, I'm so like, I can't handle that formatting. Just drives me bonkers. So while I'm like editing this spreadsheet and the 3 people that are still watching are getting bored, what do you know your rough acquisition cost assumption for paver sealing and then average job size?
I mean, in the past, we were, somewhere around 125 for paver sealing?
For what?
Paver sealing, acquisition cost.
No, around 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the average job size?
Around 900.
Yeah. I'm gonna put your acquisition cost at 200. Partially because if you were at 100, that tells me you left a bunch of revenue on the table. You should have been spending closer to 200. Like you should have spent enough to get to that point, because otherwise you're leaving customers out there that you could afford to go get. And so obviously, like the idea of diminishing returns comes into play, where you don't want to like keep spending until your average is at a third, but like the next customer being at a third is the last customer you want to go pay for. Like you pick off the lowest hanging fruit, and the first 10 customers you get cost you $10, and the next 10 customers you get cost you $50, and the next 10 cost you 100, and then I'll feel like your super easy lead sources run out, and now you're paying for more expensive lead sources, and whatever that is, Home Advisor or wherever you're getting more expensive leads that don't convert as well. And at the point where they start costing you $300 in paver sealing, that's when you're like, all right, I'm not paying another $300 for these clowns. Like that's too much. That's the cutoff point. So we'll put the average at 200, which just says you're pushing up to that, like you're pushing the limits of getting aggressive on your marketing. You don't have to do that, but just so we can see what it would look like. Let's steal, just for fun, these 8 jobs from your salesperson and 5 referrals here. So we're still just spending we're spending $5,000 on marketing for paver sealing. We got all the same stuff going. Here we have a lower acquisition cost, so we're getting 33 jobs from our $5,000 spend, whereas we're only getting 25 paver sealing jobs with that acquisition cost. But because the average job size is so much higher, the revenue ends up being higher, right? And then let's pull this revenue over. Boom. All right. Now, would paver sealing clients, repeat rates can get kind of funny when you're talking about these different services, because if somebody's in my database, even if they used a different service, I'm still going to count them as a repeat client, because I didn't have to go buy their lead. I just sent them an email. I just sent them a text message. It wasn't like expensive marketing to be like, hey, don't forget we have paver sealing. Do you leave this 50% in here for paver sealing, or do you feel like repeats are lower for paver sealing because they don't need it done as often or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, they don't need it done as often, but because as a paver sealing client, they could also be a pressure washing client. I don't know how we would separate that out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do like some maintenance, cleaning and things like that for them still, like, on a yearly basis, even though we might not reseal every year, or we don't reseal every year.
And this
we're
would
still,
this would be only for when you go back and reseal.
okay,
Is what you'd be looking at here. And actually, the revenue that you would use would maybe be more based off your total revenue and not just your paver sealing revenue. Because again, it's not like you
Okay.
expect just paver sealing clients to repeat as paver sealing clients. It's more like, here was all of our revenue, and we know that of all of our clients, so many percent of them that are in our database will get served this year, and it's normally X percent of our revenue are people that are in our existing database. X percent of our paver sealing revenue in this case comes from people that are already in our database, whether they've done paver sealing or not before. Maybe this would be lower because the frequency that they would need paver sealing is lower versus pressure washing. They would need it more often. And so again, it's not as much about, did they get pressure washing before? Did they get paver sealing before? It's just, are they in your database? And is it super cost effective to tap them and say, hey, we're up to this thing. You don't need to like go buy them as a client again. You already have them as a client. You just need to let them know what you're up to. So that's that. I suppose this budgeted cell reference here is going to be all goofy because it doesn't, I can't handle a formula error. Just can't handle it, clearly. So now we've got budgeted paver sealing sales down here, and we've got budgeted washing sales here. And so all we'll do is say if sales and marketing has that, use, how are we going to do this? I won't do this live, but basically I need to add another row of these gray column here, or gray row, where it would grab either these or what's on sales and marketing. But basically I'm going to create 2 more rows that grab the sales and marketing from the other side and drop them in here, so that if we wanted to use this, then you can pull it over to the front side here. And again, just still keep these percentages of supplies based off of those specific revenue streams. So if you want to budget for sales and marketing different and build up the revenue streams of those 2 things differently, you can pull them over to the main tab and build the supply percentages off of them. So it's getting late. I'm not going to do that live, but we can do that. And the 4 people that are still watching, thanks for hanging in there and spreadsheeting with us. Jeremy and Carly, any other, there's a bunch of comments in here, but I was not looking at my phone. Michael Gregory's still on. He says he's not bored. This is his jam. But do you guys have any other thoughts, questions, epiphanies? Or are you like, damn it, Dan, you just made us look at a spreadsheet for another hour and a half of our life?
No, I thought it was really good. The only other thing too would be like looking at the payroll tab and how could we split out if we do have to pay a lower percentage for commission on our paver sealing jobs, then how could we put that in there, which I'm sure you can figure out for us. But yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing we just did with marketing, which is like duplicating the section of technician pay and then having one section based off of feeding from pressure washing revenue and one section feeding from paver sealing revenue, and then changing the the commission rate that you build into it.
Okay.
So yeah, we can do that.
I mean, I guess, but like ultimately we still want to be around the same target. So I don't know if it's like even that needed, because like our guys are going to go, like they're going to get paid sometimes for the pressure washing commission and sometimes for the paver sealing commission, sometimes even on the same day. So, and I don't know if it's worth it until we get like a dedicated paver sealing team and a, dedicated pressure washing teams.
Yep. And so, you don't have to budget as precise as you have to operate. Right. So, and I'm going to say that again because I need to make sure for myself that it made as much sense out loud as it did in my head. You don't have to budget as precise as you need to operate. which means when you budget, you can just be like, roughly half of our revenue comes from pressure washing and half comes from paver sealing. And although we pay different commission rates on those things, we're going to just split the difference. If we pay 20% on one and 15% on the other, when I build my budget, I'm going to base it on 17.5%
Yeah.
wages. And so like when you actually pay people, you have to be more precise than that. But when you budget, you can like build some swag in there. You can even like in that payroll tab, I built out the training. In our budget, I just add like 2% for training. And I did some math and I figured out that it was about 2% on average. And there's some months we're going to do a little more and some months we're going to do a little bit less. But now you can't just be like, hey, trainees, sorry, we've exhausted the 2% that I allocated to you. You guys ain't getting paid this week. Like you got to be more precise when you're actually operating right. But when you budget, it's okay to make some assumptions to like speed up the process and just like in general have an idea of where you're going to be at. Not to say that you can't totally dial it in, but sometimes you dial it in so much that it's hard to like step back and see the whole picture too. And then you're like, wait, where did we get off? Because we had this thing measured to the penny. And you're like, oh, but we forgot about these like 3 other little random things that we couldn't take into account because they're just so random or convoluted or whatever. So it's like trying to find the sweet spot of being accurate without having to be totally precise. Yay, budgeting. Woo! Well, thanks for hanging out with me. And remember, this was your idea. So
His idea.
yeah.
No, it's good. Thank you.
That was good. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was great.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys and bringing it up as a topic to do live, because not everybody's like, hey, let's show my financials and what I want to do live. So I appreciate your willingness to share what you got going on and give some people good stuff to think about. Like I said, I've never dove into this before, and luckily I had a 4-hour drive today to come to my parents' house, and I literally the whole time I was like, man, like I should actually think about how we're going to do this thing. So this was a good one. This made me take some notes and think through the business model. So I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there. And thanks to everybody that stuck it out and watched it. Michael, you're probably still watching. You are the man. I love you. Thanks for hanging in there with us and watching Bookkeeping Beer and BS. For everybody else that watches this, if you haven't gotten your target budget spreadsheet, which is what we were just going through, go get it. You don't have to use it as extremely as we did tonight. You can like just punch your sales in and go, but clearly it's like a powerful tool for you to think through the strategic parts of your business and be thoughtful about how you're paying employees and how you're spending money on this and that and where you're getting your revenue from. So go get it. It's free, yourblueskies.com. It's somewhere in the comments. You can go find it. That's all I got. Happy Wednesday night. I'm going to end the live session, and we'll see you guys not next Wednesday, maybe not even the Wednesday after. I might be ice fishing, but a Wednesday next year. Happy holidays. Happy New Year, guys.